When I first got this tattoo of a dagger on my arm at the age of 27, the thought behind it was that I love swords and that I wanted a custom made sword so badly. One of my best friends, he and I would travel the world together and he would get them made, bring them home to his place in New York City. But I couldn't do that because I was a nomad and I can't travel with swords in my suitcase all around the world. And so my clever idea at that young age was to get a tattoo to me. And therefore, I would always have it on me and I could make it in any different design that I wanted. Little did I know that this would be the start of a huge journey. Shortly after that, in which time a series of unfortunate events happened to me, I, like many people who hit rock bottom, started getting very spiritual. And I at first started to think, why is it that so many intelligent people look at the tarot? What is it about this? At the time, I was an avowed atheist, and I am a systems engineer. I did civil engineering and industrial engineering by training. I thought everything has to have some type of scientific basis. But what really is science at the end of the day? It's the scientific method, right? You make a hypothesis, you do experimentations, you have a data set, and as long as everything points out to the same hypothesis, you can prove it correct, right? Until something says it's wrong, it's actually correct. And so I decided that every single day for 1 year, I would pull a tarot card and see what happens. And every single day, exactly what tarot card I pulled wound up happening. In fact, one day I pulled the death card. I pulled it once the entire year. Within 3 hours, I got a notice that my grandmother had died that morning. I'm not joking you. I think that her death actually coincided with when I pulled that card. And so I started to really believe in tarot. And over the years, I got deeper and deeper into it. In 2021, after basically everything in my life had consistently gone wrong again and again and again, I felt like I was at war with myself. And I realized that I was in the Five of Swords. And I had to learn how to get out of this. Of course, I had to learn how to get out of the war within myself. And so I started looking at the tarot and seeing that this became a system by which I could relate everything that had been happening to me onto these different stages. For the most part, I was completely stuck in fives. The whole way through, I was stuck in fives, except for wands, where I was actually in four. I had a home life. I had, a stable situation of my space that I lived in and a stable boyfriend. But I was at war within myself. I was not grateful for anything that I had. I was in Five of Cups energy. There was a lot of love and there was a lot of goodness, but I was always looking onto the horizon for what better I could have, never looking at the good that I had right there at my feet. And I was in Five of Pentacles because the past few years had left me completely financially destitute. And so I was feeling like I was trapped in this energy and I had to learn how to get out of it. Thankfully, the tarot gave me the answer. Now, after the five comes the six, right? So I could have moved into the Six of Swords, which would have been walking away. But if I walked away from my current external realities to move into a new one, well, I would still be disappointed. I would still be in lots of hurt and lots of pain, right? Because I wasn't being grateful for what was happening. And so if I wasn't moving into the Six of Cups, then yeah, it would all be for naught. The whole thing would happen again and again, which had been happening up until this point. If I moved out of the Five of Pentacles and into the Six of Pentacles of learning how to receive, well, how does that even happen if you don't feel like you're worth anything, if you don't have love for yourself? So I knew that the weakest link in this entire system was my cups. And thankfully, I had only reached the Five of Cups because I had been actively developing it. Now, the cups was my weakest energy. I knew that since I was a young kid. In 2012, I did my Myers Briggs for the first time. My Myers Briggs has consistently, up until the point when I started going to therapy after I recognized the system, up until that point, it was an ENTJ, which in the 16 personalities framework that gives these names is the commander. Now, a female commander is actually the rarest of all of the forms within the Myers Briggs, to my knowledge, at least. Please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. So there are other combinations which are rarer than the ENTJ, but the female ENTJ is very rare. And in the 16 personalities, a booklet that I got once, it said that my biggest weakness was getting in touch with the heart space and having empathy and love. And I recognized that that was what I really needed to develop more. I was predominantly a swords energy. That is very apparent. I don't know if I knew it at the time, but I lived in my ego. I lived for forward action. I'm an engineer after all, and I had a lot of trauma. And so all of this was constantly compounding, right? I knew I needed to get into a heart space. And so when I first fell in love, that's when I felt like I picked up the cups of trying to understand what love is. If you want to understand what this journey is, check out the framework videos that I have on this channel. But I figured that I needed to learn that side of myself. And so the guy that I fell in love with was from southern Spain. And I decided to move to southern Spain and learn a much more romantic way of life than I had ever known, being from a very swords dominant city of New York City and then moving to Silicon Valley, right, which is all about kind of a wands energy. It's all about creation and making things happen. I had to leave all of that behind to go focus on the love for myself, my heart, the world, just knowing life. And so I went. So I had been working on the cups, and that's how I got to the 5 of Cups in the first place. And so when I recognized that that's where I needed to really hone myself, I started to go to therapy to get in touch with my 6 of Cups, get in touch with my inner child. Now, that journey took a long time. Eventually, I did get to the point not of really connecting with my inner child, but of recognizing that I needed to step out of my 4 of Wands in order to move on. I needed to start like actually just actively deploying energies if I wanted to move on from that war that I had. And so I did step away from my relationship in London. I moved at first to Berlin, and I started to develop these. I did eventually get in touch with my inner child actually here in Dubai. I was at war. I felt like I was in the 5 of Wands while I was living in Berlin, working on an electronics manufacturing ecosystem play that was constantly battling everything around me. I felt like I was hitting my head against the brick wall every single day. Nothing was going well. There was no such thing as a flow state. And because I was in 5 of Pentacles, that created every problem as well. Money helps a lot of issues. And so even though I was developing through the swords, if you know anything about the swords journey, the 10 of swords is the most negative of all the 10s in the deck. It's the ego death. It's when everything has reached a point of horrible, 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 like you're strategizing and then you're your own worst enemy. And then you're in this phase in the 9 where you're just in your absolute dark night of the soul. You're in a nightmare and then your ego dies in order to make way for you being able to actually communicate yourself and be able to get yourself out of whatever situation you're in. And I had to go through that process, which I finally did when I decided to move on from Berlin and decide to move on from this war that I was fighting in order to come to Dubai. When I came to the UAE, I had this nightmare of a situation and I had my ego death around Christmas and New Year's, at which point I really think that I finally became my Queen of Swords self. And I understood who I was and what I was doing. And within this process, I very quickly was able to manifest my coach, who's amazing, who helped me really for the first time after years of therapy. She's the one who helped me finally connect with my inner child through deep meditations. And I wound up with her and with a few other experiences that happened, mastering my cup's energy to the point where I can now receive love. I feel love for myself like I've never felt before. And I am the Queen of Cups in a way that I never knew even possible because that was my weakest point. So now, after being the Queen of Swords and the Queen of Cups, I'm still in this point where I'm trying to master my Wands and my Pentacles energy. Finding this love for myself and being able to get rid of all of my ego, I realized that one of the creations that I've had was this tarot framework that I've been sitting on. I was able to share it with my friends as a way to help them over some full moons, over a few different nights. And everyone said just how much this helped them, how this framework felt like therapy to them. It helped them move forward. It helped give them the tools for recognizing how do they intentionally move forward? How do they intentionally better themselves? People who thought that they had forgiven people, it turns out that their heart space was really a huge problem, that they haven't focused on this cups and that's what they need to focus on. Or people that were, cups focused really hadn't been thinking about wands or manifestation. And so nothing was happening for them. And this gave them the framework framework to say, wait, where are these skills that need to be honed and developed and what can happen? And one by one, they helped me put together this framework. And so I hope that by sharing this, by creating this system, by using my wand's energy to put this out there, I can help more and more people. And eventually, the value that I'm going to create will help me get out of the Five of Pentacles energy that I'm currently in. Thank you for listening to my story of how the Tarot Personalities Framework came to be. Every Friday, please expect new videos from me about precise aspects to what happened in my journey. Each week, we're going to be delving into a different part of the system, and I'm going to be sharing my story going through the stages of that suit with you so you can know what to expect for your own journey, or at least like know how to relate it and feel a little bit less bad about a journey that you've been on, or just simply if you want to get to know me, because I know a lot of you in my network and of thousands of people that I've shared this with that ask me about all the stories of my life. This is where I'm going to be sharing all those stories. I have been nomading around the world for more than 10 years at this point. It's been a bit. It's been 12 years now of nomading around the world. I worked in dozens of countries. I have worked in dozens of industries. I've worked in from mines to factories to marketing companies in Europe, and worked in video gaming, and I've worked in everything. I have stories of so many different crazy people because this cycle of life has been a lot. And so I'm excited to share it with you all. If there's anything you would like to know, if I've missed out on anything, if you want me to cover anything in the next videos, please leave it in the comments. And most of all, I look forward to having one-on-one conversations with each of you through the assessment framework so that we can see where in this journey you are and what you need to know in order to become the highest version of you. If you want to know more about this framework, if you haven't yet watched the introduction video that I've posted that goes over it, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Ciao for now.